Gotcha.
Today's session is the introduction to security, most security, most security, most security. Depending on the given client, we need to understand that they have important data and information that they need to be protected at all costs. Ensuring that appropriate security is an essential element within IT. If we are unable to do this, obviously we will, one, lack a critical role that we need to have, and at the same time, quickly lose our job. So we're going to learn today about the importance of security as well as the different types of viruses and social engineering threats that will need to be addressed in a workplace. As I've stated to other students, unfortunately, today is the last day that you are technically part of the normal workforce. You are technically part of security. And a lot of these Fortune 500s, you're not allowed to do anything without security and or HR to go inside someone's computer. Either which way, we have to be fully aware of what the security and policies that are in place, because saying nothing or playing ignorant and or not knowing what is the correct policies and procedures still holds you accountable if they and when they find out that you knew and you didn't say anything. So we need to hopefully by the end of this session explain why security is important, an element within your role, describe the most common types of threats and vulnerabilities, identify different types of malware and social engineering threats. We need to understand that we also going to become trainers. We can't go and start running around. Oh, excuse me, you didn't scan. No, no. Just to let you know, we need to make sure that you scan through here to be able to get in. I can't let you in. I do apologize. I know. And if they get too rough, I don't know what to tell you. That's the security rules. They got cameras everywhere. I could lose my job. I really can't let you in. I can't let you piggyback. There's a major difference between piggyback and does anybody know what is the other one that is just like it, but I don't know that you're coming right behind me.
The tailgating one.
That is correct. Tailgating is one of the famous ones because there is two ways of doing tailgating. It could be that you're tailgating right before the person goes, or come in like in a little tight crowd, or even cuter. A lot of the people like to do this, which if they see a woman's about to walk in, they go and open the door when she is scanning for her. That is one of the most common ones, or dressing up like Belle, right? If you dress up as Belle, that's another social engineering scam where now you're impersonating. I'm sorry, assuming you know who Belle is. Belle is your local telecom provider. Bell usually is like Southern Bell, Atlantic Bell. Those are your bells. It is obviously essential to apply the best practice in order to fully secure a workstation and wireless or wired for our clients, especially the physical location. There's man traps and other things that we can do. At the same time, we need to be assured that we train the users in the type of threats that may come along to them. One of the emails that I thought was very cute today is I received an email that stated that my OneDrive is going to be deleted, which was great because I don't have a OneDrive. So I was thought that was wonderful. And when you read the email, it came from Microsoft, not Microsoft.com. So that was even better. I thought that was real cute. Either which way, there is obviously the ones that contain malware threats themselves. We have the actual categories of viruses, worms, spyware, adware, who knows where, no, ransomware, rootkits. There's obviously also social engineering like phishing, scams, spoofing. For instance, that was most likely a phishing one that I got just to see if I go and click and actually fall for it. Shoulder surfing. We mentioned tailgating, which is the one that we need to know for the actual A plus. We also password attacks, which is your brute force, basically keep on hacking until you figure it out. You have your dictionary attacks, which basically means I collected a whole bunch of information of most useful passwords or maybe information about you. That makes it much easier for that when I use my Linux-based tracking system, I can actually just create a plethora of passwords with all the combination of that dictionary to be able to attack. There's a 0-day attack, which basically we'll get into the details of it, but that means exactly that. That is, you have 0 days since it's been known or that it has been already attacked. In other words, that you have fallen for it. It could be a virus, it could be an exploit. You just don't know exactly what it is, but it is obviously a 0-day attack. No one knows what it is. For instance, the blaster worm when it first came out. Violations of security and best practices, believe it or not, are one of the most common ones where the user themselves goes and creates the issue or the admin. That's one of the reasons why no longer no one, I just said it, Windows went into the Linux space and they also went into the Linux idea of that no one has admin rights. They actually have a server to be able to create another ID so that that ID looks identical to your ID, but that's the admin ID. Usually they put a little A with a hyphen, and then that ID is able to go in. You should never log into your PC with that ID. You should use it as your root ID. For instance, in Linux, it's for Windows purposes, they created that extra ID. So in reference to the different things that I just said, one of the main ones we said was the shoulder surfing. We'll get into the detail of that, but it does not only mean that you're surfing on someone's shoulder, but it does mean that you're actually able to see their screen. It doesn't matter which way. Just remember that if you're shoulder surfing to any S's, you're actually able to see their screen as if you are in their point of POI, point of no POV, feeling of view. All right, thinking point some other acronyms there. So if I have binoculars and I'm across the street and I'm looking through a window, I'm physically not behind you, but I can see your screen. Make sense? Those are the type of tricks that they'll throw at you or weird things. The guys with a sniper scope a mile away or some weird thing. As long as you can see the person's screen, technically that is shoulder surfing. Phishing is one of the ways, as I said earlier. And lastly, the tailgating. Any questions before we proceed? Well, what do we need here? We need to be adaptable, highly adaptable, because all these things comes in different shapes and forms. We're going to be teaching you today exactly what are the, I always forget the name. You know how in science class they always said that we are part of a certain family of animals. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm not saying anything in that I agree with these people, but it's the same thing with viruses and or malware. So a virus is a malware, but a malware is not always a virus. A virus is a malware, but a malware is not always a virus. So now that we know that all of these things are malware, we'll get into the details of all the different flavors. We need to be able to adapt and accept that although we're learning what these main functions are, that doesn't mean that every given malware only has one thing in there. What do I mean? For instance, we're going to learn, I believe, here also about Trojan horses. A Trojan horse is just that. As we know, a Trojan horse does not attack. Even if we remember the story, the Trojan horse did absolutely nothing. All it did is get rolled in. Now, the payload, the army that was inside, that could be any type of virus, a phage virus, or whatever it is. But the act of just getting into your computer and being in there, that part of it is a Trojan horse. And it's not really damaging anything, for as an example. Growth mindset is a must because of the fact that people get bored, especially with Microsoft, and have nothing better to do. Viruses continue to come out, and obviously we need to be able to learn and adapt to every given situation, specifically on those 0 days. Any questions? I pass it over, I believe, to you, Marvin, or am I still here? I don't know.
No, it's me. It's me. What's the likelihood of me leading the T session on security, right? That means I got to tighten up. I see the irony in this. So security overview. I'm gonna start us off, but I will get some assistance from you all today. Information security is basically having an understanding of the parameters and procedures in which you are able, in your position, to keep things secure. Kelly always reminds us, when you have certain applications that don't require a fee, you and your information is the value that's in that process. So understanding information security is understanding how valuable your information is and ways to stop it from being compromised. On this next slide, you will see some recent and more known attacks. I'm gonna get Miss Camille, if you don't mind reading this next slide for me. The next two.
All right, threats and vulnerabilities. The best way to protect information is to know the possible security threats and vulnerabilities. Some of them are malware, social engineering, password attacks, zombie/botnet, man-in-the-middle, zero-day attack, and violations of security best practices.
All right, I'm gonna let you start off with malware. I see I lost the slide. One of the slides that I wanted before you start, Camille, was talking about some of the most major attacks that we've had. Anybody was susceptible or found their information being exploited through the PlayStation attack recently? It wasn't recent, it was like 2011. That was a really big one. Anybody remember that? 77 million people were affected on that one. And also in 2017, Equifax was had a big cyber attack as well, and 143 million people was
Marvin, being that you're in Jackson, you may not know this, but here in New Orleans, our DMV was out for almost a whole month due I want to say last year.
And is that not scary? Like, at this point, we don't know who grabs that information and what's happening in that process. So once again, with the help of my colleagues, I am hammering down the areas of soft entry into my information daily. So Camille, I want you to start us off with malware.
All right, malware, short for malicious software, is any software used to disrupt computer operations, gather sensitive information, gain access to private computer systems, or display unwanted advertising. Some of the common types of malware are viruses, worms, spyware, Trojans, rootkits, and ransomware.
Thank you. And just like Diego just mentioned, all viruses are malware, but all malware is not viruses. That was pretty deep. I like that message. There are several different types of malware, and as you recall in earlier sessions, we said that a lot of those companies that offer protection went away from just calling everything antivirus to now anti-malware or security suite, because they want to cover all, or try to attempt to cover all the different malicious software that's on the market that's causing issues on your PC and other devices. So we had to get away from the naming of just antivirus, because it's not all viruses. So let's see if I can get Chris, sir, if you don't mind.
Symptoms of malware virus infection. Programs load slowly. The programs on the system start to load more slowly. This happens because the virus is spreading to other files in the system or is taking over system resources. Files appear or disappear. Unusual files appear on the hard drive where files start to disappear from the system. Many viruses delete key files in the system to render it inoperable. Changing program sizes. Program sizes change from installed versions. This occurs because the virus is attaching itself to these programs on the disk. Unusual operating characteristics. Browser, word processing applications, or other software begins to exhibit unusual operating characteristics. Screens or menus may change. Mysterious shutdown startup. The system mysteriously shuts itself down or starts itself up and does a great deal of unanticipated disk activity. Reboot or startup errors. The system suddenly doesn't reboot or gives unexpected error messages during startup. Lost access to system resources. You mysteriously lose access to a disk drive or other system resources. The virus has changed the settings on the device to make it unusable.
Thank you, sir. Very overview for viruses, and we have some more on it. But if you think about it, one of the major things that really stood out is the slowness, especially if you feel like there hasn't changed, nothing's changed from like if you didn't add any new application or you didn't address anything else with your PC, and it's all of a sudden slow. That's a major sign. But one of the things that really alarms us is, I think it's the fourth bullet, unusual operating characteristics. A lot of times, you receive a virus when what you're looking at doesn't appear to be the same application that once was there, or it's something's on top of it and I'm not allowing you to get to the software that you're used to using. That was a really, really big telltale, like, hey, something's on my computer. Why can't I access this? Or what's this hovering above the application that I'm trying to access or utilize? Those things really jump out and can really be a pest. And we want to be able to present you with some resources and tools to address that. So we're going to keep going on. Kareem, are you available, sir? Okay.
Yes. Virus. What viruses do? A virus in most cases tries to accomplish one of two things: render the system inoperable, spread to other systems. How viruses spread. Many viruses will spread to other systems given the chance, and then render the system unusable. If the system is infected, the virus may try to attach itself to every file in the system and spread each time the user sends a file or document to other users. Most viruses today are spreading using email. Types. Each type of virus has different attack strategy and different consequences. Armor virus, companion virus, macro virus, retrovirus, polymorphic virus, phage virus, stealth virus, resident virus, overwriting virus, and multipartite virus.
Yeah, that's it. Appreciate it, Kareem.
It's a party. It's a party, a big party.
And real quick, you're just supposed to get a generalized, for the purposes of the exam, you're just getting a generalized idea as to what these viruses are like. These are basically just general groupings of viruses that have specific characteristics.
Yeah.
This is not a deep dive into viruses. This is kind of your introduction to them.
Well put, Kelly.
Am I right, Diego?
Key thing to understand is just the traits of what it does. This is not, if you'll notice here, it's not going to tell you a blaster virus or a blaster worm. It's not going to give you all those names of them. It's just telling you what is the main family, what is the main one where they came from. There's a whole bunch of variants or different names of these things, but the job that it does is the key thing that we need to do. And there's very small variances in some of them. We just need to understand what is it that they do. They all obviously do some type of destruction. It is a virus, so it is going to type of destruction or killing or something. But how they do it and how they disguise themselves or what is it that they do to be able to do their job is key here. But they do attack. Viruses, key thing there is attack and infect.
So you heard it
Attack.
two different ways. just gonna piggyback on it. Look at the naming, and that really helps. Last mentioned that earlier today during our debrief. The name kind of helps you identify the virus, but pick up on the traits. Don't get too overwhelmed because you see so many. It's just knowing the lay of the land here. So I'm gonna get David, if you don't mind, sir.
Sure. Let's see. Armored virus is designed to make itself difficult to detect or analyze. Armored viruses cover themselves with protective code that stops debuggers or disassemblers from examining critical elements of the virus. The virus may be written in such a way that some aspects of the programming act as a decoy to distract analysis while the actual code hides in other areas in the program. The key to stopping most viruses is to identify them quickly and educate administrators about them, the very things that the armor intensifies the difficulty of accomplishing. A companion virus attaches itself to legitimate programs and then creates a program with a different file name extension. This file may reside in your system's temporary directory. When a user types the name of the legitimate program, the companion virus executes instead of the real program, effectively hiding the virus from users.
Thank you, sir. So you just heard two of the several that we're going to talk about. Armored covers themselves with protective code. Companion creates a code with a different, attaches itself and it creates a different program within a alongside that actual program with a different file name extension. Just pull just little pieces there. I'm going to keep moving because we got quite a few to talk about. Let's see here. Phase on. If you'll do macro and retro.
Macro viruses exploit the enchantments made to many application programs. For example, Microsoft Office supports a mini basic programming language that allows files to be manipulated automatically. These programs and the documents are called macros. Macro viruses can infect all the documents on your system and spread to other systems via email or other methods. Retroviruses. Retroviruses attack or bypass the antivirus software installed on a computer. Retroviruses can directly attack an antivirus software and potentially destroy the virus definition database file. Destroying this information about your knowledge without your knowledge would leave you with a false sense of security. The virus may also direct attack an antivirus program to create bypass for itself.
Thank you, sir. So we just caught on to those two with what macro is and how retro mess with your database file, which is the heart of any of your virus software, because that's how it's identifying those key threats. So it's something that's a route that the retrovirus will try to exploit.
What is a macro in Windows Office?
Visual Basic scripts.
Yes, that is correct. You can actually record, for those that don't know, you can record processes yourself of what you usually do and repetitive, and you can write the code yourself, to the point that if you're as lazy as me, you'll spend about 2 months to create something that usually takes everybody else about maybe, I think it was they were sending over 500 personally made emails to all of the vendors with obviously their information of what they were going to pay depending on every product manually. It took me about 2 or 3 months to create it, but it took about maybe half an hour for it to actually generate all the emails and send it out. Unfortunately, my circuit was a little bit slow, sorry. But it generated in less than a minute, but my email took half an hour to send them all out. But obviously, this macro is powerful to the point that if someone unfortunately downloads this Word document, this Excel document, or whatever it is, the moment that they open it, if the macro was made to automatically do that, which mine did, it would check your actual ID to see who you were. So the moment that you open the Excel sheet that I gave you, it would check who you are and erase everything if you were not supposed to be actually reading that. So even if you actually went and send yourself that email, it would actually delete the file or update the file to your information. If someone gave you the file and decided to, send it to you, it would actually sync and give you your information. But in the wrong hands, I can do whatever I want now, because whatever rights you have, the moment that I open this Word, that you download and open that Word document, I will automate everything, and you won't even see it in the background, because it can run in the background. You can actually open Excel where it's not visible to the user, so that you'll be even confused. You're like looking at an empty Excel sheet, for instance, and you have no idea what it's doing in the background, or you won't even see anything. Worse, you might even open it up several times and it's actually doing it several times in the background.
A lot of Office documents nowadays, they'll always ask you before they run scripts, or they'll disable scripts.
That is correct, to have the enable preview and then the enabling of stopping those scripts. But there is people that unfortunately go and change those automatic settings that by default ask you.
Let's see here. Ronald. Polyphage and stealth, sir.
All right. Hold on, sorry. All right. Polymorphic viruses change forms in order to avoid detection. The virus will attempt to hide from antivirus software. Frequently, the virus will encrypt parts of itself to avoid detection. When the virus does this, it referred to as a mutation. A mutation process makes it hard for the antivirus software to detect common characteristics of the virus. Page virus alters other programs and databases. The virus infects all these files. The only way to remove this file is to reinstall the programs that are infected. If you miss even a single incident of the virus on the victim system, the process will start again and infect the system once more. All right. And stealth virus attempts to avoid detection by masking itself from applications. It may attach itself to the boot sector of the hard drive. When a system utility or program runs, the stealth system redirects commands around itself in order to avoid detection.
Thank you, sir. Poly is it mutates, which is kind of cool with the name, and stealth, it hides like others, but look where it's hiding. Look how it's trying to conceal its location. Mm-hmm. Those things are the slight differences that you see. Once again, 10,000 foot view. Don't dive deep. Just look at some of the slight variations from these different viruses.
Yeah, and I love viruses. Obviously, these are exploits and stuff. So there is, as you said, these slight variances. We just heard earlier one that sounds almost the same, right? Yep. We had the armored virus, which tries to actually hide itself, but it actually, what it does, it creates an armor, a protective layer around itself to be able to actually disguise itself. We have the polymorphic, and how does he do it? He encrypts himself. These are the key words that are in these sentences that we need to listen to. And this one, polymorphic, he actually encrypts parts of himself and obviously mutates himself. Why does he encrypt himself? Once again, I have a definition table that says what your code looks like. Now I can compare that to that, but if you are encrypted, I can't read you. And again, stealth sounds almost like, I believe, each other here and some other ones that are coming up.
All right, I think we're getting close to the end of viruses. If I can get, who am I leaving out? Joseph, you available for me, sir?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you.
Resident virus hides and stores itself within the computer memory, which then allows it to infect any file that is run by the computer. It will load its replication module into memory, so it does not need to be executed for it to infect other files. Rather, it activates whenever the operating system loads or operates a specific function. This virus may be one of the worst kinds as it can affect the system thoroughly, even attaching itself to antivirus applications, which allows it to infect any file scanned by the program. Overwriting virus effectively destroys the original program code, typically by overwriting data in the system's memory. Typically, users will need to remove the offending virus and then reinstall the original programs, which can be difficult depending on whether the original programs were backed up or kept in duplicate copies offline. Multipartite virus attacks your system in multiple ways. It may attempt to affect boot sector, all executable files, and destroy application files.
Thank you, sir. Overwrite virus. Overwrites data. I mean, sometimes it just write itself, right? So you got to keep in mind, all of them are not going to be super tough to remember and identify. You just got to pick up on the, continue to pick up, because you're doing it. Just continue to pick up on the little pieces that have been tossed out here. I think it's time to go to worms. Worms. And K-Don.
Differences from a virus. A worm is different from a virus because it can reproduce itself, it's self-contained, and it does not need a host application to be transported.
Pause right there.
However,
That's big. That's information that you would want to keep and take to memory. It can reproduce itself, and it's self-contained. It does not require a host to be transported.
Asexual, that is correct. It is a worm.
Asexual. So that's a very good, that's the meat of that particular piece of information. I just wanted you to see how it's separated.
That's a good catch, definitely, because a virus requires human interaction.
Yep.
A worm does not require human interaction to actually whatever, get it, I guess you can say, or get infected.
Keep going, Ms. King. I just wanted to stop you right there. I won't stop you again.
However, it is possible for a worm to contain or deliver a virus to a target system. How worms spread. By their nature and origins, worms are supposed to propagate, and they are used whatever services they're capable of exploiting to do that. Early worms fill the memory and breed inside the RAM of a target computer. And worms can also use TCP or IP, email, internet services, social media sites, or any number of possibilities to reach their targets.
Thank you, ma'am. Worms, man. Worms are nasty too. So, and as you see, most methods of getting viruses transported or realized on your system is through email now, because email is so big. So they target email because that's the quickest way to go from my system or Microsoft, my system to Kelly's system, because I guarantee you I'm going to email Kelly at least once a day, or Diego at least once a day. So that's a very, very reliable traffic option. So that's something that you also see as we continue.
My favorite had to be the blaster worm itself, was using SMB to be able to propagate. If we remember from the previous exams that we just took, SMB is a surfer message block to be able to go and map to drives. So who has map drives? Users. What a great idea. Why don't I use something that where SMB and everybody that has a map drive and anybody that's connected to that map drive gets it.
Well, there's also a worm that everybody uses, or a lot of people use nowadays, especially gamers. It was a bad worm, but eventually it was repurposed and reused. The Tamarind Worm, which allows us to push IPv6 protocols over IPv4 networks. It was originally used to infect systems, but now we use it day to day because programmers paid attention to it and took the key features from it and now use it for something to actually improve the way our systems work.
That was awesome.
So that's good, bad turned into good. I like it. Camille, I think we make it back around to you.
All right, spyware. What spyware does, it monitors the user's activity and responds by offering unsolicited pop-up advertisements, sometimes known as adware. It gathers information about the user to pass on to marketers, and it intercepts personal data such as credit card numbers. How spyware spreads, spyware works on behalf of a third party. Rather than self-replicating like viruses and worms, spyware is spread to machines by users who inadvertently ask for it. Users often don't know what they have asked for spyware, but have done so by downloading other programs, visiting infected sites, and multiple other ways.
Thank you. So in a sense, all spyware isn't bad, I say, because sometimes that unsolicited information actually plays right into something that you may have wanted. Fun fact, slight off subject, but not. My grandmother just turned 88, and we have a group text message, and we talked about things that we could do for her outside of sending pictures and making calls. It was like, hey, your grandmother wears this size garments and things of that nature. I promise you, after I received that text message, and later on in that day, I started to see older women garments in my phone. Like, how? I still don't understand. That's scary. Through a text message, not like I searched or anybody in my home searched for these things. It was through a text message. So Siri, Cortana, Kelly, I don't know who's listening or who's doing it, but it's not safe out there, and I'm starting to get scared. So, but spyware will allow, and I think now, if you're realizing a lot of websites that you go to, you typically something pops up in front of that website and they ask you to press OK about cookies or something like that. I understand, Chris, but sometimes it make it so you think that you can't get past that pop up. You got to be careful.
Notifications, those things are terrible, and they will do bad things to you.
So I think the common, like Diego just said earlier, we're no longer commoners. We have just taken that pill on the matrix. You're in the matrix now, so you know better. People who don't will click it, and you don't know what you are signing up to. You don't know what you just allowed that software, that application to be privy to, which opens up a whole nother Pandora's box, a can of worms, or something else we'll talk about like Trojans, but it allows that communication to go on much longer than you even want it to go on. So, I mean, it's case by case.
May I make a suggestion here?
Go ahead, sir.
Notifications are very, very dangerous. I would suggest everybody turn them off in their browser. The reason why is it's really easy. Every time you go to a website, that little thing pops up. Do you want to receive notifications from me? And just the other day, my wife, she actually pulled up something. All of a sudden, there was a big message on her screen saying she needed to do this and this. And I looked at it, I'm like, that's not good. So I checked into her notifications, and just by chance, she'd gone to some website sometime, and it popped up, do you want to receive notifications? And she had accidentally clicked on yes. And you could do it like if you accidentally went like to a bank site, but they accidentally misspelled it. So instead of like, say, Bank of America, so it was like Bank of America or something like that, and it popped up a notification, you accidentally hit yes. Sometime down the road, without you even knowing it, you may also receive a notification that says you need to go in and change your password. You click on that and you give them your old password. Now they have access to your bank data.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's bad, Chris. But like I said, we are becoming more informed. We're no longer in the area of ignorance because we've embraced this. I've embraced it as well. It's 3 minutes after lunch, and that's not cool. So we're stopping the recording right now, please. And Joseph, If you have it up, I'm gonna let you read Trojans for me, sir.
Not gonna make a joke about that, but let's go. What Trojans do, I'm a bad person, can create it. Oh my God. You guys, you're killing me. Can create a backdoor or replace a valid program during installation. It then accomplishes its mission under the guide of another program. Trojan horses can be used to compromise the security of your system, and they can exist on a system for years before they're detected. How Trojans spread. Enters a system or network under the guise of another program. May be included as an attachment or as part of an installed program. Preventing Trojans. The best preventative measure for Trojan horses is to not allow them entry into your system. A port scan may reveal a Trojan horse on the system. If an application opens a TCP or IP port that isn't supported in your network, you can track it down and determine which port is being used.
Thank you, sir. Joe did a really good job, and it's pretty much as it stated. It comes in under the guise of another program, and that makes it pretty hard to try to figure out where it is or how it happened. You have to be super mindful of attachments that you open up, and just like with Diego, with his Microsoft spelled slightly different, talking about OneDrive, which he does not have, or with me recently, it was an Amazon password situation, and I'm like, I haven't purchased on Amazon in so long. What is this about? So you just got to be mindful and don't be naive and think that everything that comes into your inbox is friendly, nice, and safe. Those things, that's the main, I told you, the main highway that most exploits are traveling on is the highway, the email route. So
yeah, Joseph, to allude to your chat, it is unseen for years because it only does that. As we said, just like the Trojan horse in the fairy tale or whatever that, if it is real or not, the Trojan horse didn't do anything. They made it, let it come in, they pushed it actually into the gate, and the payload that was inside, whenever they actually came out, via logical bomb or whatever other type of thing that it has inside, is the one that's actually doing something. It can actually go ahead and open a back door and just wait as a zombie, just waiting to be controlled. So the Trojan itself is really, you can't see it because of the fact it's not doing anything. You asked it actually when you installed to do what it did. After that, your computer doesn't think there's anything wrong. You asked something to get installed, it opened up a port, fine and dandy. That was part of the installation process. Hence, it can be undetected because if it doesn't do anything until the payload comes out or the army comes out of the Trojan horse, nobody knew that the Trojan horse really wasn't just a statue. Could you imagine if they would have hit the troops inside the Statue of Liberty? That would have been awesome. Sorry, sidetracking. Go ahead.
they would have probably perished in travel, right? Because I think they had to like on a boat, right?
Yeah.
Over time. Well, who knows? Who knows? But you're right. That would have been a trip. Let's see. We got Rootkits. I need a reader because I don't see anybody right now. Let's see. Chris is always up for the task. If you will, for me, Chris.
Rootkits. What rootkits do? Software programs have the ability to hide certain things from the operating system. There may be a number of processes running on a system that don't show up in Task Manager. Connections may be established available that don't appear in a netstat display. The rootkit masks the presence of these items. The rootkit does this by manipulating functions calls to the operating system and filtering out information that would normally appear, preventing rootkits. Unfortunately, many rootkits are written to get around antivirus and anti-spyware programs that are kept up to date, that aren't kept up to date. The best defense is to monitor what the system is doing and catch the rootkit in the process of installation.
Thank you, Chris. And once again, we're asking a lot out of you. So one thing that we have at our, and that's in our toolkit, no punning intended there. We have Windows updates, and you have that definition list from your soft antivirus and a spyware malware software that, if kept readily up to date, should be on board to monitor the possible rootkit that's trying to come in and exploit the system. So just keep that in mind. Ransomware. This is one really cool. Marcus, if you will, sir, that'd be great.
What ransomware does, ransomware is a type of malware that usually encrypts the entire system or an entire drive within an encryption key that only the hacker possesses. Once hackers encrypt the machine, they will hold the data residing in the device hostage until a ransom is paid. The latest example of this attack arrives as an attachment that appears to be a resume. However, when the attachment is opened, the malware uses software called CryptoWall to encrypt the device. What usually follows is a demand for money to decrypt the device. I think what Alvarez was talking about, the DMV, was ransomware, wasn't it, Alvarez?
Wasn't it the FBI or something like that? They had a
I know, I mean,
ransomware one.
specific, New Orleans.
That wasn't me that talked about it, but yeah, I think that was ransomware. They
A
had
couple of the school districts here
they
have
had
that
locked up.
too.
No, there is a slight difference though, although they say it usually encrypts. For this, I guess, A+ purposes, it's the family of ransomware, but the one that does encrypt is called cryptoware, which it does encrypt to ask for money. But they're both types of ransomware. For the ones that are going further, just for your own knowledge, ransomware usually does not have to encrypt. That's not the part. It's just asking for money. Now, cryptoware encrypts it for sure and asks for money.
Kelly, you about to say something? Okay. I can speak from experience. I have a radiology degree, so I'm currently on probation because I didn't pay my. I have the ability to do MRI, CT, X-ray, all that jazz. And the hospital that I did my training in, Alabama, you can actually Google it, Spring Hill, they were hit with a ransomware attack where this hospital that houses patient information, they were at the mercy of this entity that was asking for X amount of thousands of dollars in order to release it. And a lot of companies typically pay because it's easier at times to just get that off your back as opposed to all of a sudden all that information being available online and having to clean it up on that side. But you're putting a lot of trust in a thief or a criminal or somebody that has that information. But at the end of the day, they want the money just as much as you want that information back. So,
but typically with ransomware, if you give them the money, they tend to give it back to you. Why? Because if it gets around that, if they pay, they're not going to give it to you anyway. People aren't going to pay.
They're thieves with integrity, so that's why.
Oh man, honor.
Kind of.
Honor most thieves. Okay, I got you.
No, seriously, this is the only reason. Like he says, that's the only reason it works. Because you can imagine if it got around that you paid and you don't get your stuff, then screw it. Why am I going to pay? I'm not gonna. There's no reason to pay. But they're infamous for that. Is that if they will give you your stuff back, they'll give you the key. Here you go.
Look at me. I am your captain now. Nobody gets that. Okay.
I charged $75 from my brother to be able to get his. He got ransomware, not cryptoware. Little did he know that all I had to do is just go. Anybody know what he had to do? And he had it turned on.
Use a restore point.
Thank you. $75 later, 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Literally, you hit F8, go in and just hit restore, and it goes back. Give you back your. I wasn't gonna tell him that.
What a time.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy, man. It's gotta be nice to my
Yeah,
brother.
75 is not a bad price.
They were charging him much more.
you undercut the thieves. I like that. Hey, you can deal with them, you can deal with me. I'm family. What we got next? Social engineering. Alimu, if you're available, sir.
Social engineering. Social engineering is a process in which an attacker attempts to acquire information about the network and system by social means, such as by talking to people in the organization. The social engineering attack may occur over the phone, by email, or by visit. The intent is to acquire access information, such as user IDs and passwords. When the attempt is made through email or instant messaging, this is known as phishing, discussed in the next slide, and often is made to look as it is coming from sites where users are likely to have accounts. Types of social engineering include phishing, spoofing, shoulder surfing, and tailgating.
Thank you, sir. Social engineering. That puts us as IT professionals and the colleagues that we will be assisting right in the mix of a lot of this. Whereas with some of those other threats, they are coming in and they are, how can I put it? They're trying to exploit you in other ways. This way, you have individuals that are really pushing to get this information from you, and you kind of can curtail a lot of it. So we're going to talk about a little bit more with phishing. And at this time, Kelly can't probably do it. Diego, I would love for you to bring up that video that you have, that you posted, because that would be kind of neat.
Oh, the phishing one? Let me see
Yes.
if I can find
If you
that
can
one.
find
Okay,
it.
I'll get it now.
Okay, I'm gonna get someone to read this next slide. Oh, let's see. Alvarez, please, sir, if you're available. I don't see you.
Phishing. What phishing does. Phishing is a form of social engineering in which you simply ask someone for a piece of information that you are missing by making it look as if it is a legitimate request. The person instigating the phishing can then use the values entered there to access the legitimate account. An example of this would be an email might look as if it's from a bank and contain some basic information such as the user's name. In the email, users are asked for their username, password, account information, and so on. Preventing phishing. The only preventative measure in dealing with social engineering attacks is to educate users and staff to never give out passwords and user IDs over the phone, via email, or to anyone who isn't positively verified as being who they say they are.
Thank you, Alvarez. At the end of the day, why would your bank ask you for your password?
Exactly.
No need for them to have, they don't need that to get your information. They have your information. So but that happens. That happens. Also, you don't have an estranged family member in Ireland, Nigeria, and they put this Switzerland. You don't have, that's not your cousin. And they don't have $20,000, but require at least 3 to get this transaction. That's not.
I'm waiting.
You ready?
That first one.
No, I'm waiting for my money. I already sent them. I sent them the deposit. They said they're gonna send it next week to me.
If we have time, and I'll try to find it, and I know Kelly, you may remember this one. Probably Diego too. You probably showed it to your class.
Nice.
It was a TED talk where a gentleman really just went as far as long as to assist this person with giving them information piece by piece, and just see how far he could take it, knowing that he couldn't affect him because he was keeping himself safe, but he would like egg him on. He was like, "Hey, do you need my password? Do you need my email?" Okay, so hopefully we'll get a chance on the day. We'll show that. That one is awesome, because if I'm the guy that's trying to, I just feel like I got it all. I got this guy that's so willing and so ready to give me information. All along, he's playing with me. He's giving
Kelly,
me.
who did you say?
Go ahead. Marcus?
Did Kelly say a name? I thought I heard him say James Browning or Jim Browning or.
Say it again, Kelly.
You might not be there.
I think it's like James Beach. But we'll find it, Marcus. It's good, even if we'll just put it in Slack. But it's worth the watch.
Okay, I just watched one today and it sounded like that, so I was just curious.
I'm gonna let's see. Okay, he got it. He got it for me to watch. Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
One of the ones that I like that I put. I'm continuing through my history. Might be easier if one of you just repost it to me.
Yeah,
you can
please,
download
Kelly.
it.
I'll do
Actually,
that right now.
just download it to your PC because I post too much things in this, and I don't know how to find my own posts.
Okay.
Yeah, and the guy's name was James Veach. He was on Conan O'Brien, did something similar. He was on TED Talks. He's done a couple of them.
Kelly, can you take over for 1 second? You got to call in, don't you? You good?
No, well, I mean, I can't do that right now, but yeah, I can take over for a second.
All right.
Phishing. Let me bring it up here.
It's still up, yeah. Did
Yeah,
everyone
there's
get the
variations within phishing where they may get more targeted. One of them is called spear phishing, where they're targeting specific organizations and stuff like that. They're looking for people within a specific organization. And then there's another variation called whaling, where you're trying to get someone in a level of high authority within that organization, like a CEO or some form of officer or somebody higher up in the IT field, and you're trying to specifically target those people. Generally, phishing is you're trying to cast as wide a net as possible to see how many people you can get to respond to that particular email. Like often you'll see in your inbox, your Bank of America account, password needs to be reset. Please click here. And you're like, well, I don't have a Bank of America account. Why the heck am I getting this email? You don't, but think about how many people who do, and then they may do something along the lines of going after, the CSX railroad. They'll send an email to everybody in the CSX, where 90% of them won't open it. Maybe 10% do. And then they'll be able to get their virus in through that. All right, spoofing. Alvarez, can you please help me out?
All right, spoofing. What spoofing does. Spoofing is the process of masquerading as another user or device. It is usually done for the purpose of accessing a resource to which the hacker should not have access, or to get through a security device such as a firewall that may be filtering traffic based on a source's IP address. Examples of spoofing are changing his or her IP address to one that belongs to a trusted user or device to get through a firewall filtering at the IP layer. Spoofing the MAC address of a trusted device to defeat layer 2 security applied on a switch or wireless access point. Spoof a username and password to access a resource, or spoof an email address to launch one of the email-based attacks.
Excellent. So this would be like, in your organization, basically somebody sends an email, says, hi, I'm such and such from IT. I've noticed that your password has expired, or we need to run an update on your computer tonight. Can you please give us your name and password so that we can run that update when you are no longer here for the day? And if they don't know the name of all the people in IT, but they've, this is not an uncommon practice where IT will notify them. It just might be a little odd that they're asking for the name and password. They may go ahead and give it. And then all of a sudden now they have access to the system, and then can start doing elevation attacks within the system to try to gain greater authority. All right. Any questions with regards to spoofing? All right. Shoulder surfing. This one is pretty straightforward. I think Diego has mentioned it earlier in the day. It's basically somebody just standing over your shoulder watching what you're doing. This could be someone posing as a janitor at IT. This could be a coworker who wants to gain access to, you know, your files, or they're planning on doing something not so pleasant to the company's systems and they don't want it under their name. So they look over your shoulder, get your credentials, and then once they have your credentials, they have your access and authority, and then anything that they do will be logged under your credentials and not theirs. It's a pretty simple thing that is done, not something that people readily.
Somebody else is talking.
Go ahead, Diego. Not something people would readily protect against, but it's something you should be aware of if you have coworkers that like to linger and look over your shoulder when you're signing into your systems and things like that. Privacy filters can help, but the best defense is also training and also notifying people when they're, you know, a little too close, you know, ask them to please, you know, just step back a little bit, something like that, so that they're not easily able to see what you're typing and what you're doing. All right, tailgating. Basically somebody sneaking in behind you as you are going through security or secure doors. One of the common practices would be somebody trying to, you know, pretending like they're carrying like an empty box or something like that, pretending like that box is extremely heavy, and as if they're struggling with that to get to the door. And then they're banking on you being a polite person and being kind and holding that door open for them, and now granting them access to the building or secure area. And it doesn't matter how good your security is, if a hacker has physical access to your systems, you're done. They can pretty much do what they want at that point.
I do that a lot when I do Uber Eats.
Well, there you go.
I've got inside so many apartment complexes without having to call a person.
Point proven. And then, and it's easy. I mean, it is easy. I remember, you know, the key to any of it is always look like you're supposed to be there. Don't look around like suspiciously or anything like that. Just walk casually as you would normally, and people tend not to stop you. Security, anybody. So it's about, I mean, it's about confidence.
Yeah, you walk around like you belong somewhere. They never mess with you.
Yep. When I first moved up to New Jersey to transfer, I went to the warehouse I was transferring to. None of the people there had ever met me, and I managed to get all the way to the back offices in a internationally bonded warehouse, getting all the way through security, never once getting stopped, just by, you know, walking around like I know I was supposed to be there. You know, it's an unfortunate thing. People, you know, when you see somebody and they look like they're supposed to be there, you're not going to challenge them. All right, password attacks. Oftentimes we hear about, you know, how important it is to have complex passwords. Don't use common words. Use up, you know, and then you'll hear them typically say, you know, you can't use the same password more than 5 or 6 times in a row. The password has to be X amount of characters long. You have to use an uppercase, lowercase, number, symbol. And each one of these factors that you add adds a level of complexity to that password. And it's an exponential growth in the amount of possibilities that could, you know, exist for that password. Now, a lot of that is diminished if you start using common words, you know, like Diego was talking about earlier, dictionary attacks. You know, they're going to use common words, you know, and those words might just be the most common passwords used. Or if you're going into, if you're targeting specific systems and you know who the person of the system you're trying to get in, you would use social media accounts, do some research on it, figure out what their kids are, what their anniversary date is, what's their wife's name, what's their, you know, significant other's name. And then you can use all of these things to try to gain access, because a lot of people will gravitate towards things that they have a strong affinity for, or, you know, or do all the time, and use those things to be their passwords. And there's 4 main password attacks that typically can happen, which is brute force, which basically, you know, if you think about a combination lock, if it, you know, was a 4, you know, like, or someone's ATM, like we have the 4-digit PIN, you know, the brute force would be like 1111. Next time 1112. Next time 1113. And go through and just hit as many combinations as possible to try to guess that password, essentially. And then you have dictionary attacks. Oh, I didn't realize it broke them all down. Yeah, so then there's 2 different types of brute force. There is the online brute force and the offline brute force.
I got a question.
Yes.
So I used to have a like a regular password to log into my Windows on my computer, and I did an update with Microsoft, and now we use a PIN code now. Does anybody else do that?
Yeah, Microsoft is doing the PIN. I don't know why they're doing the PIN personally, because a 4-digit PIN, but I think they only allow you X amount of tries per hour, I think. Yeah. That's another way that they would protect against a brute force is say you're only allowed 3 tries, and then you have to come back in an hour, and then you're allowed another try, and then you have to come back in an hour, because otherwise,
I guess that's a little bit more.
If there is no constraint, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no constraint on the amount of times you could put in that PIN, brute force attack could probably crack that in, you know, about a minute, if not less.
Right.
Just
wanted to make sure it wasn't just me. We're talking about this.
But they put those time constraints on there, and that's why I guess they allow it, because of the fact that each guess you make, they're going to make you wait X amount of time. It's going to take a really long time.
I believe you get notified by email if somebody's attempting to log in. You're talking about the live, when you log in with your Windows Live or whatever it is account, your Windows account. That's with associate, not your local account, because I don't think the local account allows you with a PIN. It's the one that's connected to the internet. Correct, Alvarez?
No, it's just when I log into my computer.
Agreed. But can you go to the store with that ID? To Microsoft Store?
Oh, I've never done that. I don't shop Microsoft.
Did you ask it to do because there's a difference between a local account and the account that links to your actual Microsoft account?
Nah, I guess this is a link to my actual Microsoft account, because it's the same password I use for my Xbox and stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's all locked in, so that's not even asking for a PIN code, because there's no reason for it to ask me that. It knows that's my system.
Agreed. And it'll send you an email, because I've accidentally put the wrong PIN, and it sends you an email. Or at least it sent me an email.
Oh, okay. Now I never put the PIN in wrong yet, so I haven't gotten an email or anything. I guess that's one way to test it. Put the PIN in wrong just to see.
Yeah, because I have a different PIN for my kids compared to mine. Although it's the same password, but it's a different PIN to get into that PC compared to this PC.
Gotcha.
And it sent me an email saying that I tried too many times.
So that's like a form of
no, it's still single. It's still single. It's single. Because there's only one. It's still something you know. Still something you know.
2 factors using 2 different methods.
Okay.
Because it's something you know, something you have, something you are, and somewhere you are.
Okay.
Or something you do.
Something you do.
Yeah. So those are the different types of security methods you have. For multi-factor authentication, you have to use 2 of those methods. And that's very important. So if somebody's going to use 2-factor authentication, they would need the sign-in and password. That's something you know. That's the first one. Right. And then they would send a text to your phone, which is something you have.
Yeah, that's what I do with my Google. Yeah.
Yes. So that would be 2-factor, because you're using 2 different methods.
All right. So yeah, you couldn't do the password and the PIN. That's 2 of the same thing.
Correct, because that's two things that you know.
Gotcha.
But may I make a point here?
Yes, Liba, go ahead.
Yeah, the first time when I saw it, I think I was really curious about the PIN of Microsoft. So if someone took your password, they can't have access from any device from anywhere. But if you use your PIN from only from that particular device, you cannot use that device from another device.
Correct. There are ways around it.
That's why they prefer the PIN.
That's why, because you first set it up with the password and then you put the PIN, correct. And that's what's trying to make it supposedly safe. So that if anything happens, all right, but at least they're not going to get into your account. You can stop it by getting online and blocking them out.
Gotcha.
Here's a quick social engineering hack to be aware of. So if somebody does get your sign-in and password, what they do is they call you as a representative of such and such company, be it like, whatever investment bank. Hi, I'm such and such from your bank. I'm calling you. I want to talk to you about your accounts, but first, before I do, I'm going to send a PIN code to your phone. I need you to confirm that PIN code with me so that I know that you are who you say you are and I have authorization to talk to you. They put in your sign-in and password, it sends the PIN code to your phone, and you have now handed them that PIN. So now they have full access to your account. They can say, yeah, I see you have X amount of dollars in this and this and this. We're looking at moving it around, but meanwhile, you're unaware that you've completely just given them access to your accounts. So that's another social engineering one to kind of be aware of. All right. Dictionary attacks. This is one we were talking about just a little bit ago, where you're using the common words and things like that. You can use pretty much every word in the dictionary to, if they do not have a limited amount of times, you can try to access the particular password, or like I said, if you know the exact person who runs that account, you can start looking for things that, they do. Like, do they like, the Dallas Cowboys? Do they, what are their kids' names? What's their wife's name? What's their anniversary dates? All these things, they'll work in combination to try to guess your password. And if you're relying on these things like, your kid's name or your kid's school or something like that, they're going to be able to get into your accounts really quickly. And that's where these dictionary attacks come into play. So, and even using things like, people will get, they'll replace an E with a 3 and stuff like that. They do take that kind of stuff into account as well. So that really isn't a good security measure to throw into place. One of the things they say, use phrases, something like that. Take a phrase from your favorite movie, your favorite song or something like that. Take the hook line of the song and use that as your, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Laz. Something that's going to be a lot longer, and then use that phrase and then intermingle in some digits in there. And that will help develop a much stronger password than using a single word. So, and with that, I will hand it back over to Mr. Marr.
You have any questions about dictionary attacks? All right. That's what I'm talking about. What we got next? Rainbow tables. Let's see. Rainbow tables. Alvarez, go ahead and just read this one. We'll talk about it.
All right, rainbow tables are large databases that have every permutation run through a hashing algorithm. So the hash can be looked up and cross-referenced back to the password that created it. The purpose is when passwords are stored in the operating system, they are stored in their hashed format. If you have access to the password hash, a rainbow table can be used to find the password.
Kelly,
I'm hearing that.
Can you elaborate on hash?
Yes, hash is a one-way encryption. It's supposedly one-way, where you can put a password in and it gives you what looks to be gibberish coming out. But there is an algorithm to it. It's extremely complex. and it's supposed to be a one-way encryption. So when you send salting is a good way to help protect your password. Thank you, David. But when you send a password or when you sign in to a system over the internet, oftentimes it's not transmitting your actual password. It's hashing that password, creating that encryption, and sending that encrypted code. That's what the other side is receiving, and they check that hash versus the one they have on file. If they match, then you're good to go. You have authorization. And the two typical types of attacks you would get on that, something called pass the hash, where they would capture the hash in transit and then use that to decrypt it. And that's where the rainbow tables would actually come in play. Or they would actually find the password file within your computer and use that encrypted hash there as well to try to work backwards and figure out what your password is. What's the other one? The other one's called a birthday attack. And there's a thing, it's like if you have 50 people in a room, 2 of you will have the same birthday. And so there's a limited number of hashes on the early ones. And so it's a lot easier to get a duplicate of the exact same outcome. And so basically they will have an entire table, like a rainbow table, of the different kinds of hashes. And it doesn't matter if they know your password or not. If they can achieve that exact same encryption, then they have succeeded in cracking it. Does that make sense to everyone?
So all computers save or specifically Windows, as a specific table that has your ID and like he said, the hash password. This password is saved there. So now that I have your computer, technically I have your password. All I have to do is get that table, as he stated, and go into this rainbow table and just run the program. It'll stop and let me know exactly where in the table it found that permutation or that actual hash password. And now I go into that row and go across to find where the hash is to see where the physical real password was. Manual at that point.
Marcus, you got a question?
Who curates or maintains these rainbow tables?
You do as a person that's cracking. There is a list, obviously, of the actual, you would say, default words and stuff like that. But these things are huge. If you are a dedicated hacker, then you could add more to it. But there's usually a default ones that you can go look for, and they'll give you.
Yeah, Marcus, I think you can probably Google it and at least get the most common phrases and words, and then just like Diego said, just keep a file and continue to add to it, and then you are dang. Go ahead.
But hackers will also buy and sell these and trade them as well to kind of expand their toolkits.
Like freaking Pokemon cards. That's awful.
Oh yeah.
Hybrid attacks.
That's a very apt example.
Got to catch them all, Kelly. Hybrid attacks is a combination of dictionary and brute force. Example: if you know there's a good likelihood employees of a particular company is using derivatives of the company name in their passwords, then you could seed those values into the values attempted. Very, very common practice, possibly for people who are uninformed. But I like the fact that now, even with your mobile devices, they are generating a super difficult password that you don't have to remember. But my question is, what happens if you can't get back into that? That's always my concern. I always make my own passwords because I'm like, I will never remember this, but what happens if I can't access this? I'm confused. So I just have to add another number onto the end. I'm getting better, Kelly. I promise you I am. That's just, it's nature of the beast, and we got to stay diligent. Any questions about hybrid? Next is going to be bots. Know about the bots, don't we? This one's, I don't want to kind of short form it. I want to get this one read out. So, Joseph, please, yeah, if you're with me.
Alrighty, zombie botnet. A bot is a type of malware that installs itself on large numbers of computers through infected emails, downloads from websites, Trojan horses, and shared media. Once installed, the bot has the ability to connect back to the hacker's computer. After that, the hacker's server controls all the bots located on these machines. As a set time, the hacker may direct the bots to take some action, such as direct all the machines to send out spam messages, mount a DOS or denial of service attack, perform phishing or any number of malicious attacks. The collection of computers that act together is called a botnet, and the individual computers are called zombies. By recruiting many zombies to assist in the attack, the attacker greatly magnifies the effect of the attack.
Thank you, sir. So we go from a DOS, like Joseph just called it, denial service, to a DDoS. So depending on how many computers this this hacker has access to in that particular in that particular company. So DDoS or denial service can really just shut down all traffic because it's like freaking overloading your computers and your traffic. So it's making your traffic come to a standstill because so much is going on at the time. And it's significant enough that it can bring down a whole server. So it happens. The bots are out there. You got to be careful. What was the most recent one? Was it when YouTube went down? If I'm not recall, it was it was probably like October, November of last year. And you know who owns YouTube. So imagine the levels of amount of people that it took to bring that down, or the amount of bots. So if YouTube can be hacked, who's safe? You ask yourself, who's safe?
Nobody's safe.
No, it's
bad.
Cold world. It's cold out there. You just got to keep yourself warm and protected, man. We just got to keep trying, keep changing, keep the adaptability up, growth mindset. Because if you sit still long enough, there's several ways that have already been thought up to exploit you. Man in the middle. Man in the middle. Jose, help me out, sir.
Man in the middle. Man in the middle attack is one in which the hacker uses one of several techniques to position himself in the middle of a current communication session between two devices. Example, one way a hacker might do this is by polluting the ARP cache mapping of IP addresses to MAC addresses, such that the users on either end of the session think they are sending data to one another, when in reality they are sending it to the hacker. This allows hackers to monitor the entire conversation. Evil Twin is the name of a fraudulent wireless access point masquerading as a legitimate wireless access point to eavesdrop on Wi-Fi communications without the user's knowledge.
Thank you, Jose. Evil Twin is very commonplace, especially at places where that offers free internet. So if you go to a all-inclusive hotel resort type situation, and the name of the place is I don't know, Marvin's, and now the people that also will set up a wireless access point, instead of saying Marvin's guest and the password being 12345, it'll say Marvin, but instead of with an S, it have a $sign. And if you're not paying attention, you connect to the $sign, and it looks very similar to what you're wanting to go to, and you give your information up, but now they have access to your PC because you subscribed and logged into and accepted all of what's necessary to get onto that network. So you got to be super careful with the man in the middle. It appears to be placed strategically in a way that makes it seem like it's mimicking the host or the main of the original. So that's a big one. Man in the middle. Any questions here? All right. 0 day attack, another big one. And David, sir, if you don't mind.
All right. What a 0-day attack is. Vulnerabilities discovered in live environments before a fix or patch exists are called 0-day vulnerabilities. The 0-day attack occurs when security vulnerability in an application is discovered on the same day the application is released. Preventing 0-day attacks. Monitoring known hacking community websites can often provide an early alert because hackers often share 0-day exploit information. Honeypots or honey nets can also provide forensic information about hacker methods and tools for 0-day attacks. The 0-day attacks are announced on a regular basis against a broad range of technology systems. You should create an inventory of applications and maintain a list of critical systems to manage the risks of these attack vectors.
Thank you, sir. This one's kind of tough because it's almost like you got to be in the know to be prepared, but you should be preparing for any type of new implementation of anything. You should be aware and your antennas should be up, especially in the beginning, because once again, if there's no fixes or patches there, this is the most vulnerable your application can be is in its first couple days. Now, my question is, in the preventing, they said monitor known hacking community websites. Anybody know of any? Anybody know of the known community websites? Jose, what's the website?
The website for
the hacking community. You know what I'm talking about. Don't be bashful now. I'm just playing with Jose. He's not a hacker. He just makes me smile every time I think about him asking about a operating system. But
Chris had his hand up on this one.
Okay, okay, go ahead, Chris.
Well, like Joe said, there's the Darknet, Tor network. Get on the Darknet. You could go to other places that just have random stuff like Reddit, 4chan, 8chan. Some of the other organizations have where they discuss stuff like that.
Reddit has been really mum on a lot of different things. It's almost like they used to be a little more wild west, but I think they're cleaning it up a little bit. They may have some more people that's monitoring, but yes, Reddit is a very good site to get information, and they talk about a plethora of things. So that's a good one. I really like Silk Road or stuff like that. Like, I don't really see all of that. I feel like all that
Silk
stuff
Road's down. It got taken down many years ago.
That's what I thought. I don't even know.
Really interesting how they got the guy too.
Yeah, and I think they got a show coming out too. I don't know where to go anymore. It was an honest question. I would know to know where did people go. So
you can use the Tor network. And once you're on the Tor network, there's some search engines within the Darknet that'll search out almost anything.
You know what I think I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna Google how to get on the Darknet. That may be an option for me. What you think, Kelly?
Marvin, if you want to talk about it again on the Darknet, I can talk with you about that after this.
We might have to use that for TA time. Let me not hold anybody. You're right. Let's keep moving. Needless to say, where we are, number 7. Okay, violations of security best practices. Ms. King, take us home. I think we're almost finished.
One of the easiest ways to make a system vulnerable is to fail to keep security best practices. In a properly secured organization, security policies should exist that define the minimal security measurements expected of users. These policies will drive the development of the AUP, acceptable use policy. The AUP describes in some details the action and functions that are allowed on the networks and those that are not. AUP should always be designed to follow and encourage the use of security best practices. A critical component of the AUP is the specification of consequences for non-compliance.
And thank you, Ms. King. Consequences for non-compliance. That's like severely heavy slap on the wrist to termination. Because keep in mind, you are one of the, you being a client or just an employee, you are probably one of the most likely cause of an exploitation, to be totally honest. It's going to venturing out of your intranet using a link that was placed there, not by your people, and takes you to somewhere that's allowing exploitation to happen. So continuing to make sure that you educate the user and put the information there so they are very, very, very aware of the possibilities that are before them, and allow them, giving them even scenarios and situations. In the past, one of the heads of IT will always send out emails talking about, we purposely pushed out an email in hopes that people didn't click the link, and out of the 1,000 employees, 3 did it. Like they did their own QA, and that made him go into a rant, which I just mentioned earlier about your family that's like the lady is not lonely and wanting to see you. Like a lot of that happened in those emails. It would make me laugh when I used to see them, but I would just disregard them because it wasn't related to my work. So that's an easier way to allow a lot of stuff that happens in your company email to go by. If it's not related, work related, why is it coming to you, and why do you think you need to open it or read it? So a lot of that happened. So you may have a very good IS, internet security team, that kind of do their own quality measures and QA checks, which could cause you to have to do some extra training if you fall victim to an email or some type of offer that you should never have engaged in the first place. So that's something that you may be on a team to help curate that policy, or you may have to be the end user, or maybe someone on the other side training the end user. So keep that in mind.
I think GoDaddy just sent their employees this past Christmas an email saying something about a bonus and to click here to claim it or something. And those that actually clicked it were led into a sign up for training on why not to click in emails.
Nice.
Like, how messed up is that?
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
And then you
That's
got
actually a good way to do it.
Right. You got to do it now. We know who you are because you clicked on it. So that's really good. That's smart. But that happens. There's a quiz there, a couple questions. If you don't mind knocking those out. But yeah, you'll be surprised the stories that I've either heard or if you can't hide using Netflix on the company's website, like on the company's computer. You can't hide that, people. Like, it's so many different ways that we've seen things in the past that you like, wow, why would they do that? Why? You don't search the internet to look and apply for other jobs while at work. Like, it's so many different scenarios.
You don't?
They got coupons too.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to close this
told us that
form I was
it's-
filling out. Sorry about that, guys.
No, you don't do that. But I mean, be smart. If you have an office, bring your notebook. Use the wireless that they give to the people. Like, it's different ways.
I
like,
wouldn't even recommend that.
I'm saying
Just
there's
saying.
different
Wouldn't
ways.
recommend that either.
They found out that lease on that IP address, huh, Kelly? You're like, I noticed. I noticed the.
Yeah, I'm just saying, with things like that, depending on the level of security your company has, I wouldn't even advise that.
I was saying AT&T had keyloggers. They knew every button you pressed. And they watched that.
You'll
So
be
you
surprised.
Yeah.
It's weird, man. It's weird that someone felt comfortable enough to watch Netflix while at work and for hours and hours. Not just let me catch the end of this last one. No, I'm just gonna be on there. Who, how long you think that was gonna happen? Go on. It's not how that works.
Try to attempt to watch the World Cup. What are you talking about?
Yep, you talking about
The whole World
exactly. Cup. And you said severely affected the bandwidth, right? Like it's
Brazil, yeah, they were going to the finals, so the whole country of Brazil, almost every employee was streaming from their desk. That was great.
Let's see here. I think we're wrapping up.
You guys could have saved yourself a lot of trouble and just set up a multicast for them.
Well, what they did is they made everybody just go to the break room, since they put the TV on and say we know you're not working, so just go to the break room, really, because we need to take off with planes and gotta do some type of tracking here today. Thank you.
Which of the following are common viruses that can present threats to clients and their data? Choose all that apply. We got the resident virus. We got the direct action virus, the overwrite virus. Shoulder surfing is a type of identity theft where the sender of an email scans the reader into responding with personal data. That's false. That's false. Let's see here. Which of the following viruses overwrite code or insert infected code into an executable file? The answer is in the question. Diego does that a lot. He didn't write this one, but he does that a lot, if y'all haven't noticed. Spam and malware filters are enough to ensure that the infected mail message are unable to bypass desktop server and gateway defenses. This is false. A blank is a malicious software program that hides inside other programs.
Trojan.
All right. And here we go. All yours, Diego.
Do appreciate your help. At this point, we should be able to hopefully identify and explain why security is an important element in your professional role. At the same time, we should be able to describe the most common types of threats and vulnerabilities, being also to be able to identify the malware types. Once again, just the types. What family are they from? Are they from? Are they Corleones? Are they what is it from Romeo and Juliet? I always forget the two families, but you get my Montagues, Capulets, right?
Yeah.
You know that they're all from one given family, but they're not all exactly the same. So you just need to identify what is it that they do. One key thing though, viruses attack. Just remember that. It has to attack. As for the other types of malwares, that doesn't guarantee that they're going to attack. That's why they're not called a virus. We saw all the different pictures of virus, the armored virus, the phage virus, the retrovirus, the guy that was with a big party virus, multi-party, I like to call him, or partay, depending where you're coming from. Other which way, you also have your social engineering threats, which is obviously you yourself as a user or the users around you. And that one, my friend, is the worst. No matter how hard we try to keep these things up to date, unfortunately, humans seem to help out greatly when it comes to security threats. Any other questions on this?